I can see that we have present Councillor Anderson, Councillor Barker. Not seeing you present. Also present today are Councillors Brogan and Brown. I have apologies for Councillor Carmichael, but Councillor Falconer is in attendance as a substitute. Also present today are Councillors Convery, Corbett, Cowan, Cowie, Devlin and Dewar. I have apologies for Councillor Fagan. Councillor Ferguson-Miller. Yeah, I can see you have joined Councillor Ferguson-Miller. Also present today are Councillors Gowland, Horn, Johnson-Dempsey and Kerr. I have apologies from Councillor Lennon. Also present today are Councillors Lockhart, MacDonald, McAllen, McCreary, McLachlan, Nugent. Councillor Toner? No, not seeing you present. Also present today is Councillor Watson. We have a number of officers in attendance, and with that I'll pass you back to the Chair to commence today's business. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much, Elizabeth Ann. Item 1, declaration of interest. Has anybody got any declaration of interests? Don't see any. Item 2, minutes of the previous meeting, pages 5 to 18. Can I move these as being a correct record?
Agreed, Chair. Agreed.
Okay. Item 3, no finance items today. These are monitoring items, beginning with the Workforce Monitoring Report from March to April 2024, pages 19 to 26. And could I invite Elaine Maxwell to speak to that report, please?
Thank you, Chair, and good afternoon, Committee. Members will know that this is a standard workforce monitoring report which provides yourselves with an update on the employment information for the resource for the period March to April 2024. Section 4.1 of the report details the absence statistics for the resource, and you'll see at April 24 the resource absence figure was 6.3%. That represented a slight decrease of 0.9% when we were comparing ourselves to March of this year. Although when we compare ourselves with April of last year, the figure has actually increased again by a small amount of 0.3%, although noting that the April 24 figure is 1.1% higher than the council-wide figure. As you will know from our updates and obviously from other committees, you will know that the Council works hard in terms of the managing its absence, in terms of maximising attendance, and managers follow quite a robust process in terms of case conference with personnel to make sure that appropriate actions are taken to support our employees to remain at work or to be able to return to work. Section 4.2 details the occupational health information, which is found in Appendix 2, and you will see that there were 207 occupational health referrals made during this period, so a slight decrease of 3 when compared with the same period of the last year. Section 4.3 outlines the accidents and incidents within the resource, and you'll see that there were 35 reported and recorded during this period, and that figure has increased by 5 when compared to the same period last year. Again, that's detailed in Appendix 2, and you'll see that increase is in slight increase in minor accidents and an increase in physical violent incidents that's been reported. Section 4.4 of the report outlines the employee relations activity within the resource, and there were 24 disciplinary hearings held, 1 grievance hearing with no dignity at work complaints raised. There were 2 appeals heard at appeals panel during the period, and at the time of the report being written there were 2 appeals pending. Paragraph 4.5 outlines the analysis of leavers, and committee will see that there were 26 leavers during the period eligible for an exit interview, with 7 being carried out. Section 4.7 outlines the number of employees that left the resource. You'll see that there were 70 employees with the appropriate FTE, and that managers have indicated that 66 will be replaced with 4 posts that were due to end due to a fixed term contract. Section 5 goes on to outline in detail the staffing watch information for the resource and shows a decrease of 121 in the number of employees between 9th of December 2023 to the period of being reported of the 9th of March 2024. And again, that detail is found in Appendix 3, and you'll see that it was predominantly around full-time male employees. And that will probably be relevant to kind of the seasonal recruitment that they wouldn't quite have been started by the time this staffing watch had been reported on. So with that, I would refer committee back to Section 2 with within the report and ask the committee to approve the recommendations to note the employment information for the resource for March to April 2024. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Any questions on the report? Don't see any questions, so can I therefore move the report?
I'll second it.
Thank you very much. The committee agrees the report. Moving on to item 4, the Community Enterprise Resource Plan 23-24 Q4 Progress Report, pages 27 to 66. It has a certain historic feel about it, doesn't it, at this time of the year? But can I invite Alison Brown to speak to that report?
Thank you, Chair, and good afternoon. This report provides Q4 progress report for 23-24 for the Community and Enterprise Resource Plan. The plan was approved by committee on the 30th of May 2023 and sets out the strategic outcome and actions for the resource. The progress report is set out in section 5, which highlights that 23% of projects are completed, nearly 52% of projects are on target, with only 18% experiencing minor slippage and just 5% where there's been major slippage against timescales. Key achievements in the year are set out in paragraph 5.3, including the new priorities and criteria for the Renewable Energy Fund, which committee approved in February 2024, casualty reduction measures introduced at a number of locations. Only 1.5% of household waste was sent to landfill, and the implementation of the multi-year play area investment programme, which is well underway, with works also having commenced in Larkhall. Areas for improvement are set out in paragraph 5.4, including the percentage of household waste that is recycled, the percentage of the road network that should be considered for maintenance, and the number of business support interventions. A review of measures has also been undertaken to identify changes in status between Q2 and Q4. 7 measures show a decline in performance, and those are set out in Appendix 3. The performance report is fully set out in Appendix 2. And with that, I'd revert back to the recommendations and ask that committee approve the Q4 progress report for 2023-24, note the key achievements, note the areas for improvement and associated management actions, and note the changes to the BRAG status. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Alison, any questions on that one? I'd like to obviously note on page 29 the good news really on the number of jobs created and the value of businesses increased in terms of economic development involvement by the council, which I think is good news, particularly given the ups and downs that have been with the Business Gateway support over the last period. Any questions? No questions. Can I move the report?
I'll second it.
Thank you very much. The committee agrees the report. Moving on to item 5, that's the follow-through really. Community Enterprise Resource Plan 24-25, pages 67 to 94, the new plan, so to speak. Alison, to speak to that again.
Thank you. The plan is a key element for the Council's performance management arrangements and establishes actions and measures for the year ahead. The plan also reflects the aspirations of the Council plan and the Community plan. The structure of the plan is set out in section 4. Committee will, like 22-23 and 23-24, receive updates throughout the year at Q2 and Q4. The full plan is attached, and this includes a number of work streams which have been reported to committee in recent months. Therefore, I'd ask committee to approve the 2024-25 resource plan, approve that the plan be uploaded to the Council website, approve that the plan be presented to Executive Committee for noting on the 26th of June, and approve that progress reports be presented to this committee in Q2 and Q4. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Alison. Any questions on that report? Everybody's very quiet today. Thank you very much. Can I move the report?
I'll second it.
Thank you very much. The committee agrees that report. Moving on to item 6, that's the Community Benefit Fund's Renewable Energy Fund grant applications, pages 95 to 108. And again, Alison Brown to speak to that report.
Thank you. This report seeks approval for 6 awards from the Renewable Energy Fund. A grant of $223,462 towards the Coldplay Trust developing a mugga and skate park within the disused tennis courts in Colburn with a project value of $298,000. The second award is for £30,000 towards Larkhall community growers who seek to employ a development officer to build on initiatives within the town. Lead Hills Golf Club seek to rebuild their clubhouse and install a storage unit for machinery, and a grant of £290,000 is proposed to be awarded against a project value of £440,000. The fourth grant award is to Outreach Community Church in Straven for £59,280. This grant will allow the church to employ facility and youth workers to undertake weekly youth peer support activities focusing around mental health. And finally, the last two grant applications are to the Rural Development Trust to upgrade paths in the Belfield, Wallace, Cave and Peniel area for an award of £181,675, and secondly to create a new section of footpath and upgrade existing footpaths in the Colburn area with an award of £158,719. And therefore I'd recommend to committee that the aforementioned awards as set out in paragraph 2.1 are approved.
Any questions on those proposals? I'm not seeing anything again. Can I therefore move the report?
I'll second it.
And the committee agrees the report. Moving on to item 7, that's again community benefit funds, Kype Muir Wind Farm Connect 2 Renewables Extension, pages 109 to 114. Back to Alison again.
Thank you. This paper seeks the approval for the continuation of the community benefits from Kype Muir Wind Farm to support the Connect 2 Renewables Employability Project. Kype Muir Wind Farm, located to the south of Straven, generates £442,000 of community benefits per annum, which are apportioned between the Council and Kype Muir Community Partnership. In September 2019, this committee approved 50% of the Council's allocation to deliver the Connect 2 Renewables programme for a period of 5 years. The operator, along with the community partnership, also agreed to contribute to the project, providing a total budget of £221,000 for a 5-year period to 2024. The details of the programme are set out in paragraph 3.6, together with the outcomes in section 4. The wind farm operator and the Council's employability service believe the programme has delivered good results and should continue. The community partnership has, however, indicated they wish to withdraw their continuation to the programme and instead focus on projects that they have identified within their local action plan. With the agreement of the wind farm operator and the employability service, it is proposed to extend the programme by another 5 years to the end of 2029. The annual income from Kype Muir has now risen to £291,000 per annum, of which 50% or £145,000 will be allocated to the programme. This is a reduction of £75,000 to the programme. However, it's deemed that this can be managed. With that, I take you back to the recommendations and ask that committee approve funding support for Connect 2 Renewables programme.
Thank you very much, Alison. I think this is very much a success story of the sort of thing we like to see, I think, in terms of the investment of the REF funding. Can I move the report if there's no questions on that one?
I'll second it.
Thank you very much. That's committee agrees that report as well. Item 8, South Lanarkshire Council Bereavement Services Strategy, pages 2024 to 2033. That's pages 115 to 142. I can invite Colin Reid to speak to that report. Colin.
Thank you, Chair, and good afternoon. The purpose of this report is to seek endorsement for the Bereavement Services Strategy for South Lanarkshire, which will cover the period 2024 to 2033. South Lanarkshire Council operates a bereavement service that provides a dignified and sensitive burial and cremation service. The key piece of legislation governing the service is the Burial and Cremation Scotland Act 2016, which was passed by the Scottish Parliament on the 22nd of March 2016 and received royal assent on the 28th of April 2016. The 2016 Act fulfils the commitment of the Scottish Government to implement the recommendations made by the Burial and Cremation Review Group 2007, the Infant Cremation Commission 2014 and the National Cremation Investigation 2016. Section 3.4. The Council's first cemetery strategy was presented at the Community and Enterprise Resources Committee on the 30th of May 2023 and has allowed the Council to implement a strategic approach to the provision of burial ground within the authority area by implementing a cemetery catchment area which provides area-based measurements of layer availability and usage within each catchment, expanding cemeteries and increasing capacity within existing cemeteries by recovering underutilised space and reclaiming burial rights in unused layers. Section 3.5. The cemetery strategy sets out a new strategic approach to recovering the rights of burial for layers that have not been used in the last 60 years. This approach prioritises those cemeteries with no or limited capacity, and work has commenced, with information gathered on all layers which fall into this category for Straven Cemetery, with on-site and layer holder verification now being finalised. Legal advice has been sought regarding how the council should proceed when a layer owner is deceased, with initial letters issued to the last known address of the registered owner. 3.6. Work is continuing with the Council's Communications Department to make best use of the Council's website and social media platforms to highlight the project and ensure communications have maximum reach. It is expected this process will take a minimum of 1 year, after which there may be available layers within the cemetery once again. 3.7. The bereavement strategy incorporates the previous work undertaken in the cemetery strategy to include the crematorium to deliver a long-term vision for the Council's bereavement services. Section 4.1. The Council provides its cremation services from South Lanarkshire Council's crematorium in Blantyre. The facility opened in September 2006 and has seen an increase in annual services from 1164 in 2007 to 1725 in 2022. Following a national trend, the demand for cremation services in South Lanarkshire has increased in comparison to burial services. This trend is set to continue, along with the need to provide burial ground for the burial of ashes rather than full coffin burials, as the chart below demonstrates. Section 4.4. Analysis of the service usage has shown that the crematorium has unused capacity first thing in the morning. It is not clear if there is a demand for services at this time. However, it is proposed to offer a new type of morning service to establish if there is an unmet need. The service would be offered at 8 AM and 8:15 AM and allow for music for entry and exit, a short poem or eulogy, and a maximum of 10 mourners. This would add to the options available for a bereaved family and at a lower cost, which recognises the continued financial difficulties faced by many at the present time. It is hoped this addition would increase the uptake of early services at the crematorium and would be monitored for a trial period of 6 months. Section 4.5. In terms of crematorium infrastructure, the cremators are now over 17 years old and require regular repair as well as annual servicing. Recurring costs over the last 3 years of over 300,000 are shown in the table below. In addition, major repairs and replacements have been required over the last 3 years at a cost of over 180,000. The service operates a financial sink fund where any additional income generated is set aside to reinvest in the ongoing maintenance requirements of the crematorium. The cremators become less efficient over time, and given their age, it is likely they will be required to be fully replaced and at some point over the next 5 years. Costs will be significant, and the service will work closely with finance colleagues to plan well in advance. Section 4.7. The current IT system used by the service has been in place since 2005 and provides a database to store all information and scheduling around cremations, disposal systems and memorials. The system also provides similar functionality for cemeteries and burials. Given the age of the system, it's limited in scope for development, and there is an inherent risk with the local storage of essential data. This service is aiming to invest in a new cloud-based system to drive modernisation, with the aim of providing integrated mapping, allowing remote access to site, digitising existing paper-based processing and work instructions, and remove on-site data risks. Soft market testing has suggested one-off cost of such a system in the region of 140,000, with an annual support fee of around £220,000. The service is working with colleagues in finance, IT and procurement to progress this project. Section 4.9. As the strategy highlights, operating costs for the bereavement service and the crematorium in particular continue to increase. The service is undertaking a review of existing charges and benchmarked against comparators to ensure these are in line with the current market. The review has identified 4 activities where the Council do not currently charge, but it is proposed to introduce a charge. These are shown in the table below. The number of these requests received are not currently recorded. Therefore, it is not possible to estimate potential additional income. However, as a minimum, the introduction of a charge will lead to a reduction in requests that will allow the service to focus on value-adding activities. 4.10. The review has also allowed the opportunity to harmonise charging across crematorium and cemeteries. These proposals are shown in the table below, with the potential financial impact based on 23-24 demand and 24-25 charging. Any additional income generated by the charge changes will be allocated to the crematorium sink fund to offset future investment expenditure. Section 4.11. The Council recognises the importance of the burial and cremation services provided to the local community and is committed to the ongoing and changing needs of the bereaved and the wider community within South Lanarkshire. To ensure that the Council continues to meet that need, it is proposed to undertake the first broad consultation in the service to include members of the public, funeral directors, clergy, humanists and other celebrants, and any other interested parties to identify areas of development or improvement as part of the delivery of the strategy over the next decade. Section 6.1. There are no immediate financial implications of the bereavement strategy. However, as highlighted in Section 4.5, the cremators were required to be replaced at some point over the next 5 years. Its likely cost will be significant. In addition, it is estimated the cost of upgrading existing out-of-date IT systems will be in the region of £130,000. It is anticipated that Crematorium Sink Fund is used to cover costs where possible, with a longer-term plan being considered to ensure funding is available for these projects. If I can take you back to Section 2. The committee is asked to approve the following recommendations: that the bereavement services strategy for South Lanarkshire 2024 to 2033 be endorsed, that the new crematorium service time pilot, as detailed in Section 4.4, be endorsed, that the new and harmonised charges, as detailed in Section 4.9, 4.10, be endorsed, and that the recommendations be referred to the Executive Committee on the 26th of June 2024 for approval.
Thanks very much, Colin. I don't see any questions at the moment. Can I therefore move that the committee agree to endorse the report and pass it on to the Executive Committee for approval?
I second it.
Thank you very much. The committee so agrees. Moving on to item 9. That's the introduction of charges for the uplift of household garden waste, the Burgundy bins, pages 143 to 154. And I would like to invite Kevin Carr to speak to that report, please.
Thanks, Chair. Good afternoon, Committee. The purpose of today's report is to seek endorsement from the Committee on a proposal to introduce a charge for the uplift of Burgundy bins containing garden waste. At the present time, there is no statutory requirement to provide residents with a garden waste collection service, and approximately 110,000 households in South Lanarkshire have been provided with a Burgundy bin to present commingled food and garden waste. Residents in flatted properties with no gardens have communal food-only Burgundy bins where possible. Around 5,000 rural properties, mainly in Clydesdale, were not provided with a Burgundy bin and so are currently unable to present food or garden waste separately at the curbside. As councils across the country look for ways to reduce budgetary pressures, charges for garden waste collections have become increasingly common. There are currently 6 councils in Scotland who do not provide a curbside garden waste collection service for residents. Of the remaining councils, 21 operate a chargeable garden waste permit scheme, which means only 5 councils in Scotland currently provide a free of charge garden waste service. The councils who operate a permit system charge residents between £30 and £60, with an average of just over £42 per year. Given the financial backdrop, it's proposed to introduce a similar garden waste permit scheme in South Lanarkshire to recover some of the costs associated with providing the service. Residents who wish to participate in the scheme would be required to purchase a permit for each bin containing garden waste. Food waste would continue to be collected free of charge. The proposed cost of the permit would be £45 per year, with the permit year beginning on the 1st of April and ending on the 31st of March the following year. The Burgundy bin would continue to be collected every 2 weeks, other than a 2-week period over Christmas and New Year to prioritise the collection of residual and recyclable waste during a seasonal peak. We'd also like to take this opportunity to introduce the service to those residents in the Clydesdale area who do not currently receive the service. The cost of the permit would include the cost of providing the resident with a new Burgundy bin, as well as a food waste caddy, should they wish to use the bin to recycle food waste. In addition, the establishment of this service would allow those residents not currently on the service to opt in to receive a Burgundy bin and a caddy for food waste only for the first time. If residents choose to no longer participate in the garden waste service, they can continue to use one of the Council's 6 household waste recycling centres free of charge. In addition, information on home composting is available on the Council's website, which also signposts the guidance and toolkits from Zero Waste Scotland. Information gathered from other local authorities suggests that uptake of the service is likely to be around 30% in the first year of implementation, rising to 50% uptake from year 2 onwards. Using these assumptions, with the proposal to introduce the charge on the 1st of April 2025, full year net income is estimated to be £500,000 in 2025-26, with a further additional income of £875,000 expected in 2026-27. This means that the recurring annual income from year 2 onwards is estimated to be in the region of £1.375 million. If approved, the Waste Service will undertake significant community engagement to ensure residents are aware of the new charge as well as the alternatives if they do not wish to participate. The financial modelling includes a temporary project team to manage the design, implementation and rollout of the service. The modelling also includes the additional employee and vehicle costs of introducing the service in rural Clydesdale as set out in sections 5 and 6 of the report. Final point for members to note, the Scottish Government are currently considering proposals to make garden waste collections mandatory, which means if this proposal is approved, the Council would no longer be able to charge for the service. However, under these circumstances, it would be expected that appropriate compensatory funding would be made available to local authorities to account for the new statutory obligation. And that's certainly the message that COSLA and local authorities have sent the Scottish Government in the recent consultation. So in terms of the recommendations, members are asked to endorse the introduction of a charge for the collection of garden waste, endorse the increase of Waste Services employee and vehicle establishment, and that the recommendations be referred to the Executive Committee on the 26th of June for approval. Happy to take
Thanks very much, Kevin. As colleagues know, this has been mooted for some little time, and although there's financially driven aspects to it, there's also the matter of an even service across South Lanarkshire in the rural areas. So there's a number of pros and cons to the whole thing as well. In terms of questions, can I start with Councillor Ian McCallum, please? Ian.
Thank you. You hear me okay, Chair?
That's fine, yeah.
Okay, thank you. We move against the recommendation for the introduction of a charge. A, because it is completely unacceptable to introduce additional costs to the public during a cost of living crisis. And B, we all know the Scottish Government will make garden waste collection mandatory in the near future. Why not wait until this legislation is introduced before imposing these additional costs on the public? This will allow Council to tailor an approach which meets the legislative requirements and, crucially, the needs of our communities, both rural and urban. Thank you.
I think you're moving something there. Have you got a seconder to that proposal?
I do. Councillor Cal Dempsey, Johnson Dempsey.
Right, can we have confirmation from...
Yes. Thanks, Chair. Happy to second Councillor McCallum's motion.
Thank you very much. Can I move on to Councillor Watson?
Thanks, Chair. I've got concerns about this report and the implementation of this as well. What we're doing here is, I mean, I think the game's given away in 3.4. As councils across the country look for ways to reduce budgetary pressures, charges for garden waste collection have become increasingly common. And that's what I see this is just, it's a budgetary exercise. It's not really what's best for our constituents at the moment. But the report also highlights we're looking at spending about just under £2.5 million in costs, increased costs to the council at a time where we're struggling financially. And that's taking on board more staff and equipment at a time where we month after month at the committee we're getting told we're under budgetary pressures. What's looks like here is waste compliant residents are being hammered time and time again. That was alluded to in the report as well, that the Scottish Government, and even Councillor McCallum mentioned it as well, the Scottish Government are considering making garden waste collection mandatory. If implemented, councils would not be able to charge for this service. So, and then it goes on to say appropriate compensation would possibly be paid. There's no guarantee that we would get any payback from the Scottish Government for any outlay that we make prior to any government decision on this. And what it means as well, because I've asked questions about this before, is if you've got a burgundy bin and you go to put a bunch of flowers in it out your house, that'll be rejected. If you've got a burgundy bin with maybe 4 or 5 food waste bags in the bottom of it and you put some weeds in it or just wee bits and pieces out your garden, that'll be rejected. And to me, it's a crazy situation. We're picking up the burgundy bin, so why not just continue the way we are until we get clear guidance from the Scottish Government? I think it's also going to discourage the actual food collection that we're doing at the moment, because people will say, why have I got them a big burgundy bin in my garden and I really can't use it for anything else, and a few food bags that I put it in it week to week. So on that basis, I say I'm happy to support what Councillor McCallan's saying, but I would like this suspended until we receive a clear direction from the Scottish Government and what road we're actually going down with this. Because at the end of the day, I say, we're just creating a situation where potentially we're going to be getting fly tipping of more garden waste as well, that folk will just fling it over their garden fence or whatever into woodland area, and if they can't put it in their food bin rather than pay the £40. So I'll leave it at that, Chair. Thanks.
Is there anything in that, David, on which you wanted replies from officials on it? Was there any particular questions you're asking for replies from officials on it?
Unless somebody wants to challenge what I've said, but
Well, we'll deal with that then in further discussion going forward, I think. Okay, can I move on to... Can I make the point in passing, of course, that the background to all of this, through no fault of the council, this £20 million a year savings gap has to be found over 4 years. People should have some regard to that in discussion of this particular proposal. Can I move? Yeah, sure.
You're saying that, but we're buying more equipment, we're taking on more staff, we're going to have more recurring costs on it, and yet we've got that budget gap. And there's no guarantee that we'll get any feedback or any money back from the government at a later date.
I think, David, if I may say so, I think we'll have some comment from Kevin on this one, because it seems to me that's missing the point, which is the equalisation of service across South Lanarkshire to the rural areas which don't get the service at the moment, and also, as I say, the financial pressures behind it. Kevin, can you add a few comments to that?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Chair. Thanks for your feedback, Councillor Watson. There's a few things probably to unpack there. So, you know, I don't think anybody wants to be in a position where we're introducing new charges. You know, every year officers are asked to consider, you know, suggestions for efficiencies. We're now in a space actually where we're looking at reducing service, removing service, reducing specification, and we're looking to generate income wherever we can to actually continue to deliver a service. What we've tried to do here is use the opportunity of generating what looks to be significant income by equalising the service across South Lanarkshire for the first time. So taking that opportunity to do so. We can't introduce the service without incurring additional costs, but as you can see in the paper, the costs are more than met by the income that it generates. So from a purely financial perspective, you know, it makes sense. Your second point about, you know, the Scottish Government consultation, the Circular Economy Bill, we've included it in the paper because I think members do need to be aware of that. They are consulting on it at the moment. It's at stage 3 in the Parliament, which means it's at the final amendment stage ahead of a vote. Unlikely that there'll be a vote this side of summer recess, so it'll be later in the year. But even when it's voted on, there's no confirmation that it will be in the bill or when it will be implemented. And I think members should also be aware that there's a no burdens commitment from government in the Verity House Agreement. That means there'll be no additional statutory obligations without, you know, compensatory funds as well. So we've included it in the paper because I think members need to be aware of it, and there is some uncertainty around it, you know, but given the full picture of what we're proposing, it needs to be taken in the round.
Thanks very much, Kevin. Can I move on to Councillor Kenny McCreary? Kenny. Sorry, David McLachlan. Sorry, beg your pardon. Can I come back on that? Councillor David McLachlan. Sorry about that.
Thanks, Chair. I wonder if a comment could be made regarding the general public's concerned. You see it in social media all of the time. I see it in my local area, and it's bound to be the same in other places where people use this almost as a reason to fly tip. People talk about fly tipping is going to increase because I know it's been addressed later in the agenda where you're talking about a queuing system and a booking system and the payment for these for the burgundy bins. Can you say something in response to this, let's say, rumour that fly tipping will increase? Because I don't necessarily believe that would be the case, because my own opinion, and I'm raising it here, Chair, because this is public and people will get to see that, and if people are interested, they'll be listening, rather than trying to have a ping-pong match on social media. But if people can pick their waste into the boot of their car and take it somewhere where they dump it illegally, it's surely much easier to take it to a recycling plant. Now, that's my own personal view, Chair, and I wonder if Kevin or anyone else would care to comment on this sort of speculation that fly tipping will increase because of these measures that's in the papers today. Thank you, Chair.
Kevin, do you want to come back on that?
Thanks, Councillor McLaughlin. So I think the paper says that 20 or 22 councils in Scotland now have the scheme. Some have introduced it for 5 or 6 years. We talk regularly to all local authorities on this through the Waste Managers Network. We've not had any feedback from anywhere else that shows that there's an increase in fly tipping around this. As you rightly highlight, there's alternatives. You know, you can continue to use the recycling centre for the waste. There's home composting details on the website as well for Zero Waste Scotland and other advice. But as I said, across Scotland, there has been no feedback to suggest that there'll be an increase in fly tipping.
Thanks very much. I think it's a very valid point because I must confess my own view is, for what it's worth, the people who fly tip are the people who fly tip. They're not actually greatly affected, frankly, by the issue of charges one way or the other. And we have some experience of this when we brought in the initial charge to the bulk uplift, the second and subsequent. My own party voted against it at that particular time, but the evidence was that although we saved some money on doing that, by the time the thing had settled in, there was no significant noticeable change in fly tipping at all, because the people who always fly tipped continued to fly tip, and the responsible members of the public did what responsible members of the public do. So I do think there's a bit of a red herring about that one myself. Councillor McCreary, Kenny McCreary, sorry for delaying you earlier.
No problem. Thanks, Chair. Okay to go?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, I've got to say, I'm a bit uneasy about this for all the reasons mentioned, frankly. Also, it seems a bit strange to be introducing something next year when there's a strong chance next year it won't be introduced because of government legislation. That seems a bit odd to me, and I understand we have to make some preparations for it. However, I do have a question for Kevin. What would happen if someone decided not to pay the £40 or £45 charge and just continue to put small garden waste in the black bin? How would that be dealt with? I mean, you may say, well, that wouldn't be allowed, but who's going to stop it? Thanks, Chair.
Kevin?
Sure. Thanks, Councillor McCleary. Yeah, you're right. We can't stop residents from using the general refuse bin for their garden waste. You know, and come September, we're going to be bringing an update to committee on the waste review and some of the work we've been doing over the last year on that. One of the things that it highlights is that 60% of general waste bin is other recycling, including garden waste and food, and so it's not something that we want to encourage. But it's not something that we can stop. What we're trying to do is encourage behaviour change. And as I said, and we've said in the paper, there are alternatives if you don't want to participate in the service other than using the general waste bin.
Okay, Councillor Convery, Jerry.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. As my two colleagues sitting in front of me know, I'm never off the phone to them about fly tipping, because it's a bone of contention with me. But you know, some of my colleagues, they're entitled to their opinion of what they're saying. But at the end of the day, if the Scottish government make it mandatory, well, it'll no matter. We'll need to get the staff, we'll need to buy the lorries to fulfil that obligation. We're out of kilter with 3/4, if not more, of the councils in Scotland. And since I've had the honour of being the deputy leader of this council, I sit at meeting after meeting every year. We've got 90 million quid. Well, we've saved 21 of that. Now we're down to 77 million, and we're starting next week probably to talk about saving another 20 million. That's the reality of life that we live with. I don't like charging for anything, but I'm a realist. At the end of the day, if you're going to get for 40 quid all your grass picked up for the year, and David McLachlan made a very valid point. Well, you don't need to use your car and cause CO2 gases going all over the bloody place to take it to a dump because you're getting it. It's a service. It's a Rolls-Royce service. And Robert made the point very eloquently as well. At the end of the day, Clydesdale's out of kilter with the rest of this council, and it has been for years. So, OK, if we don't accept it and we don't have a charge for it, at the end of the day, and I just say it as it is, and folk don't like me for saying it, there'll be more cuts. And these guys will be putting forward more cuts, and then we'll all moan about the cuts that we're putting forward. So you're damned if you do and damned if you don't. This is a realistic proposal. It's been well thought out, and I would ask all my colleagues, even the ones that have got reservations, to vote for the report. Thanks, Chair.
My fault. Councillor Andrea Cowan.
Hi, thanks, Chair. I just wanted to add just some comments. I have reservations about this as well. I think that there's a 9-month run-in period, so there's obviously a fair bit of work involved for the council to get this up and running administratively and employing extra staff. And there's a fair expenditure, I think just roughly about £2.5 million expenditure to get everything up and running. And I know that the council is obviously tight for funds, and I just think, knowing as we all do that this is coming down the line as a statutory obligation for councils to collect garden refuse, to me it just seems an unnecessary expenditure and an unnecessary amount of work for officers to get this up and running when it could be cancelled, as soon as in a year's time. And fly tipping, I know that there's no evidence in these reports that we see, but we do know that locally, since the introduction of the charge for the bulk uplifts, that there have been increased there's been increased fly tipping locally, and in fact in Councillor Brown's own ward, there's been some increased fly tipping reports. But my concern is not only about fly tipping, but it's also about the reduction in recycling. And I think that some people will just, we're trying to encourage people to recycle, and I think this goes against that as well. So for all of these reasons, I think we should wait and see. And if the statutory obligation comes from the Scottish Government, well and good. And if it doesn't, then this is something that you should revisit in the future. Thanks.
Thanks very much, Andrea. David, do you want to say something further on this?
Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you very much, Councillor Cowan. It's just to be really clear on the finances around about this, Councillor Cowan. When we say in the report that there is expenditure, and you're correct to highlight that is offset by income. So the table in 6.2 of the report shows there is a cost in 2024 of £170,000, but thereafter, the council, in terms of the income, would be higher than the expenditure. So it would be a positive position in terms of overall income to the council, which would contribute towards the efficiency savings to try and reduce the financial burden of the council. I just wanted to be clear on that those costs would be replaced by income. And I think, as Kevin's highlighted, the Scottish Government has an obligation in terms of the no burdens policy to make good on that if this bill went into statute. I just want to be really clear on that. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Councillor David McLachlan, I'll come back to you, David. I don't want to go round the circle again.
No, that's fine. No, it was regarding a comment that Councillor Cowan had made, and I'm going back to what Kevin had suggested, that there has been no sort of evidence of an increase, and I wonder if that can be said about the fact that there's the charge, there's no free uplift any longer. Is there any evidence to suggest that fly tipping has increased because it's only since this year, it's only since April. And the reason I ask that, because that sort of panders to the sort of general sort of feeling out there that fly tipping will increase because we do anything regarding waste. But I get back to my point, it's harder to fly tip than it is to take it to a site. When people take stuff into their car and they fly tip, they're breaking the law. It's a criminal offence to be doing that. But I'm curious if in fact there has been an increase. I might be wrong here, I might be shooting myself in the foot by asking that question, if in fact there has been an increase in fly tipping, in your words specifically, Councillor Brown, as referred to by Councillor Cowan. Could you comment, Kevin, please? Thanks.
Kevin?
Thanks, Councillor McLaughlin. You're right to ask. We're only 2 months into the year, but you know the data that we have at the moment doesn't suggest that there's been any increase in fly tip in the last year. Now, we'll monitor that closely again throughout the year, but at this point, we don't see the increase, considering we're now charging for that first uplift that used to be free.
So I'm not going to ask you to suggest that, but I would suggest that Councillor Cowan's comments are inaccurate then. I wouldn't put you in a position to agree with that or disagree.
Well,
Thank you, Chair.
People are entitled to their views, I think, on this one, but that's one of those things. Councillor Lockhart.
Hi, thank you, Robert. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. I think on balance, I would have to agree that you can't go on offering all these things for nothing, and therefore, to protect ourselves, I guess, unwillingly, I would agree that a charge should be put in place for doing this sort of thing. Where I'm confused, frankly, is how you're going to levy this charge. I mean, there's a limited number of people with purple bins, and I look at the numbers of people being employed, additional people being employed in the council, and I just worry slightly about the circularity of the cost, if you like, and where the cost is going to fall and how it's going to be applied and exactly on who.
Kevin, want to say anything on that?
Thanks, Councillor Lockhart. So, section 3.3 of the report sets out we have 110 households that currently have a burgundy bin that presents commingled food and garden waste. So, if this scheme is introduced, the expectation will be if those residents want to continue to use their burgundy bin for garden waste, they would have to buy a permit ahead of that year come the 1st of April. So, it's, all of the modelling is based on that 110,000 residents who currently have the bin, plus the 5,200 in Clydesdale who would be introducing it to the system for the first time.
Thank you very much. Councillor Gladys Miller.
Thanks, Chair. It was going back to the fly tipping. People aren't jumping in cars to go fly tip. They're emptying their houses, they're dumping it in the street, they're dumping it in the back, and it's predominantly blocks of flats. I'm seeing an increase in it, and I'm never off the phone to housing looking for help because we don't know who's dumped the furniture. And I think it must be happening everywhere. It's not just East Kilbride.
I think there's a bit of a misunderstanding here as to what this applies to. This applies primarily to back and front door houses, not to flats. The situation in flats is different. There will be strategies coming down the line to deal with the question of recycling in flats. But for the moment, the properties that are being referred to here are not flats. That's a different sort of situation, different sort of issue that applies. So I do think we have to have the debate in real terms about what it's actually about, not in terms of things that people think it's about. Sorry to be difficult on that one, Councillor Miller, but that's not the position, in fact. It doesn't relate to flats.
If I could come back in that, Chair, there was a comparison made about the uplift, the £45 uplift for a one-off uplift, a special uplift, and that because there's a charge that people are starting to fly tip, there was apparently there's not a lot of information to corroborate that. However, I think all the councillors are saying that all the fly tippings happen out of flats. They're not jumping in cars. Councillor McLaughlin says if they're going to jump in a car to go and fly tip, and they may as well take it to a recycling centre. They're not doing that, they're dumping it. And because when we're cutting grass and we're not picking grass back up again, it's great because people are cutting their grass and just throwing it on top of that.
Well, I'm sorry to reiterate my point, but I think, if I may say so, that's not what we're talking about here. There's a different issue altogether. There's a wide range of issues in waste. If I can maybe summate the discussion that there's been here. This is one bit of it. It fits in with a number of other bits. No question at all, it's driven by financial pressure. There's an element of that involved in it. And I don't think most of us probably would be that keen on doing it were it not for the financial pressures on the Council. But with great respect to the opposition members who've spoken today, we can't, frankly, operate on the basis of keeping our heads in the sand as if we didn't have a £20 million per annum gap to fill. This is one suggestion towards it, and quite a significant one, against a background of there being a very limited number of options that can be done to fill these financial difficulties we've actually got. So you've got that in the background. The cost is modest as these things go. I'm not saying that some people won't like it. I'm sure people won't like it. Nobody does like increased charges on it. But if you were to pay a man to take away equivalent amount of garden waste, you wouldn't get it for £45 a year, that's for sure. And let's make it clear, it's £45 a year we're talking about, not some sort of other period that we're dealing with here. So I don't think people should be overstating the issue. Secondly, there's the issue of the equality of service across South Lanarkshire. And it is the fact that in Clydesdale, our citizens in Clydesdale have not been in receipt of the same service that citizens also paying council tax, also paying other forms of tax across the rest of South Lanarkshire have been actually in receipt of. And one of the things that this project does is to actually equalise the service across South Lanarkshire. The third thing is in terms of the government legislation that's coming down the line. Now, people seem to have based their comments to a very significant extent on what might or might not happen with the government. David and Kevin, I think, have laid out very clearly how these things work in terms of the relationship between central and local government. Now, there's no absolute guarantees on these things. The Scottish Government are under financial pressures of their own, as we know, as indeed all governments are. But at the end of the day, if they're going to introduce new legislative burdens upon us, these things are accompanied, as I know from my time in Parliament, they're accompanied by a financial memorandum which details what the costs and implications will be. And the understanding which underlies the Verity House Agreement and various other understandings over the years is that the Scottish Government will deal with the costs when they're putting new legislative burdens on us. Now, whether that's the case when we're already doing it for nothing might perhaps be a question. I'm not entirely certain about that. There might be some issues about that. I am conscious that there's some division of views here and that there's one or two people who've got legitimate issues about what about this, what about that, what about the fly tipping, what about other things. And I wonder if it might be helpful if for the moment we refer the matter simpliciter to the Executive Committee, which has the final decision on this, to enable them to make the final decision. If people have got further issues to raise in the meantime, let's discuss it. Let's do what we can to kind of answer people's qualms about this. It's a complicated scheme. There's no two ways about it. That's why it's taking until April 2025 to bring into effect. But the reality is, unless we move forward on this at this particular stage in time, it will not be possible to have as an option this particular saving when it comes to the budget discussions at the later part of the year. So it's really pretty important we don't let this drag. We do approve it, we do take it forward, but I am conscious to say there are people who've got very legitimate issues about the matter. Let's see if we can actually satisfy them in the meantime, and let's remit it to the Executive Committee for final decision on the matter. Would that, I wonder, meet the needs of the various members of the Council at this stage? David Watson?
Point of order and make a point in what you've said. I think my understanding is this is for us to make comment on today. It's going to the Executive Committee anyway, so for final ratification. But I still think we should make comment here, and I think it's right that we make comment here. I think you made a lot of points here in your summing up, but I think one that I need to pick up on was that, yeah, we know that with the Scottish Government's, the roads are going down, the likelihood, but why are we now going to be wasting money and probably anxiety for some constituents about bringing in this charge when in reality in a few months' time we might be back and the Scottish Government will be saying, no, it's compulsory that you pick up garden waste. Comes that we can't charge for it, we can't issue permits, and but we've already wasted money and trying to set up a system in that. We really should be waiting till we get clear guidance from the Scottish Government and what direction they're going with this. Thanks, Chair.
I think, David, we've already had confirmation from officials that this is not something at the Scottish Government level. It's going to happen in the course of months or even perhaps a little bit longer than that. This is going to take a little while to work its way through the parliamentary system, to have the guidance that goes with it, to sort out the financial implications, to include them in the Scottish Government's budget and all of that sort of thing. That's not going to happen in the context of the time we're talking about.
It's not just about the, what was it, £2.5 million financial implication. It's about actually setting up a system that could be defunct in a few months' time of permits. You know, the reality is, why would we want to do it when we know that very likelihood is the government is going to say it's compulsory, it's mandatory. But we're sending out a message to people in our areas that, no, we want to charge you £40. I don't see the sense in it, and I don't see the sense in us spending officers' time and money and trying to set that up at this stage.
Councillor McCallan? Ian?
I completely agree with Councillor Watson's approach to this. And I think the officer himself said that this legislation is likely to happen by the end of the year. That could be October. And I don't know how long this process is going to, the process they're looking to introduce is going to take. We moved against the recommendation of this charge, and we would like this to go to a vote now, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, can I ask Kevin to come back on, particularly on the legislation point, if I may, because I think there's not clarity on this as yet.
Thanks, Chair. And I think you're right, and I think the discussion probably recognises the uncertainty and complexity, you know, the waste sector at the moment. But just to be really clear on this, they're consulting on it at the moment, so that's not to say that it comes out at the other side and saying, well, actually, we've consulted on it and we are going to make it mandatory. The consultation process has included all stakeholders, and the stakeholders, including local authorities in COSLA, have fed back that there's now 22 local authorities in Scotland who are generating significant income from this, and they're to be wary of making it mandatory. So I just want to make the point that it isn't a guarantee that through that consultation process that it will be included in the final bill, or how that will look, or indeed a timescale for it, because given the complexity of it, even if the vote goes through later in the year, that's not to say that something will be in place for the following year. In fact, it's probably unlikely, given the scale of consultation that will be required after that.
Thanks, Kevin. I think that's very helpful. Councillor McCreary.
I would be in favour of your suggestion that we refer this to the Executive Committee. It would give us some more time to consider what's been said today and indeed talk amongst the groups to see what their view is. So that's my thoughts. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Kenny. That's very helpful. I think, therefore, we have got two propositions, haven't we? One is for the matter to be referred to the Executive Committee, and the second is for, what's the precise terms of the SNP amendment?
Chair, if I could just check with Councillor McCallan, is that they do not endorse the proposals as set out at paragraph 2.1. I don't know if Councillor McCallan has...
I've just come back to read the recommendations in the paper. 2.4 says that the recommendation be referred to the Executive Committee on the 26th of June for approval. So that's already there. The paper, we're looking to vote on this today and give a view from this committee. And it might be a split vote one way or another, but at the end of the day, that's the view of this committee which is responsible for this resource. 2.4 quite clearly says that the recommendation be referred to the Executive Committee on the 26th of June for approval. So I would suggest what you're saying is incompetent, quite frankly.
I think, in fact, we've got a relatively straightforward situation here where there's a motion to approve in the terms, as you touch on, that have been laid down in the recommendations. And then the amendment is actually not an amendment, it's really just to disapprove that. Can I get some guidance if that's correct?
I think Councillor McCallan wants to come in just to clarify.
Okay. Councillor McCallan.
Thank you, Chair. In essence, we move against this recommendation of the introduction of a charge, and we've articulated, lots of people articulated that reason for that. It's unacceptable during a cost of living crisis. and we know that a Scottish Government will be introducing legislation very soon to make it mandatory. So we are against this charge, and we would like this to go to a vote now accordingly. Thank you.
Okay, Elizabeth Ann.
Thank you, Chair. So I'm just confirming that Councillor McCallan doesn't want to refer this to the Executive Committee. You're just against the charge as set out in the recommendations?
So he's against the report?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McCallan. So the motion, I believe, as proposed by Councillor Brown, is that the matter just be referred to the Executive Committee for decision. So this committee won't be endorsing the recommendations. Is that correct, Councillor Brown? And I believe Councillor McCreary seconded that. Councillor McCreary? Yeah, Councillor Devlin, second. Okay.
It's helpful.
And the amendment as proposed by Councillor McCallan and seconded by Councillor Johnson-Dempsey is that they do not endorse the proposal for the introduction of a charge as set out in the recommendations in the report. So the introduction of the charge has not been, they don't approve of that charge. So I don't know if you want to bring me.
We'll do it on the...
Just we have a couple of comments.
I'm about to take the vote, unless there's something terribly dramatic. I don't think I want anybody else to come in at this point. We've had a fair go on this.
Do you want any?
All right, Councillor Gladys Miller.
Yeah, it's relating to, it sounds rather confusing because the paper is recommending that the decision goes to committee. And Chair, you're saying, well, no, we're deciding that this paper should go to Executive Committee. I'm totally confused. And David McCallum is saying we oppose the charges completely.
Approve the whole lot.
So this committee's been asked to endorse, and the approval will come from executive because there's the charging. Yeah. So we're endorsing it and referring the recommendations to executive for approval.
So they would be not endorsing it, but it could still go.
It could still go. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's what we're saying, yeah.
So you're saying that you're not endorsing, but it's going to...
Yes, we're saying we're referring simplicity to the Executive Committee. That's, I think reasonably clear, I think.
So that's the motion?
That's the motion, yes.
Okay.
Sorry, I come back in again, a point of order. Gladys is right, this is totally confusing. We've spent about, I don't know, we'll say 30 minutes discussing this, and now you're telling us we're not going to get a vote on it, other than to say, oh, can you go to the Executive Committee? You're having a laugh.
You're voting against...
I mean,
sorry, Councillor Watts, I'm going to stop you there. You're not making a new point of order on this matter. The thing is reasonably straightforward. We're moving that the thing be referred to the Executive Committee. You're moving that the report be not approved, or words to that effect. That seems to be a reasonably clear choice.
But you've got the report. The report's already. If this paper's passed, it goes to the Executive Committee. If it's not passed, it still goes to the Executive. It doesn't go to the Executive Committee.
Recommendation 3, right? Okay.
So they might be against recommendation 1, 2, 3, but approve recommendation 4.
I think Councillor McCallan was against the charge,
He's against the whole lot.
The proposal, and so it's as to whether he wants it to go.
That gets more complicated.
It gets complicated for us if you just refer it to...
I know, I don't have the votes anyways. I haven't. Yeah.
I think we need to be clear that Councillor McCallan doesn't want it to go to executive.
Yes, no, I
committee.
appreciate that.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Let me be clear again that the motion that I've moved is for referral of the issue to the Executive Committee for decision. Councillor McCallan, as I understand, has moved that that should not happen and that the proposal should not be endorsed, particularly the charge.
Chair, he's moving against the report
Yeah.
in its totality,
Mm-hmm.
not just the pricing.
Yeah.
He's moving against the whole.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And the report.
Yeah.
That's important.
Okay.
All right.
Do you want to
Yeah.
go? Thank you, Chair. So the motion as proposed by Councillor Brown and seconded by Councillor Devlin is that the entire matter be referred to the Executive Committee for decision, so no endorsement will be made today by this committee. The amendment as proposed by Councillor McCallan and seconded by Councillor Johnson-Dempsey is that they do not endorse the recommendations and they're against the proposals as set out in the paper, so it wouldn't go to the Executive Committee. So with that, we will start the vote, if you bear with me.
The motion is Councillor Brown's.
It's yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, for those in the room, the vote is now open. If you can please press firmly on your choice. Once voted, the colour on the option box will infill. For those remotely, the appropriately coloured box will appear on the right-hand side of the screen. I think I'm still waiting on one more vote, and I don't think we're aware of any technical issues. I can't actually see from here. It still looks as if we're one vote outstanding.
Are you having trouble, David? You put David in.
Okay, that's where we have all members. Chair, that the vote has now closed. 12 members have voted in favour of the motion, 11 in favour of the amendment. The motion is therefore declared carried. Thank you.
Hey, David, did you want to come in there? There we are. That's it.
Chair, normally I attend in the chamber, and when you press the button, your vote is confirmed when you press the button. But when you're online and you vote, and you've got to press a second button to confirm. And I fear that that might be what's happening because it's happened several times lately, where we're waiting for somebody to vote, and that might be the reason. So maybe it's worth reminding people when they're online, when they vote, there's a second button you've got to press to make sure that that's carried.
Yeah. Okay, that's
Point
very
of
helpful.
information,
Thank you
that's
very
all.
much. Can we move on to item 10, I think it is now, extension of the Household Waste and Recycling Centres, HWRC's booking system, pages 155 to 160. And again, Kevin Carter, speak to this one.
Thank you, Chair. The purpose of the report is to present members with a proposal to implement a booking system for visitors to the 6 household waste recycling centres in South Lanarkshire. In February 2022, the Waste Service introduced a trial booking system for the recycling centre in Curluke, which is the only centre the council operates. Despite some initial scepticism, feedback from the trial was overwhelmingly positive, with over 27,000 bookings made over the 6 months trial period. The trial was made permanent in October 2022, with over 59,000 bookings over the 2023-24 year, with a 95% customer satisfaction rate and a 99% bookings made using the simple online form. There are a number of operational environmental benefits to our booking system, as outlined in section 3.5 of the report, which includes managing demand across the day and planning site downtime, which then reduces queues for site access. Given the feedback from the last 18 months at Curluke and the benefits of the system, it's proposed to implement across all 6 recycling centres. The remaining 5 sites are operated by BIFA, with the new contract in place from the 1st April 2024, including the provision for the contractor to implement a booking system if members choose to do so. BIF have confirmed their support for the booking system, noting that the system will allow them to provide a better service to site users. If approved, communications will be issued to residents over July with a system go-live date of the 12th of August. Happy to take any questions, Chair.
Thank you very much, Kevin. Councillor Johnson-Dempsey. Cal.
Thank you, Chair. I do have some misgivings about a booking system at our waste and recycling centres. I drive a small car, which is good for my wallet and it's good for the environment, but I can only fit around 3, if I'm lucky, maybe 4 large black bin bags in the back of my car. I did a big clear out in my house last summer and was at the tip 3 times in one day. Under a booking system, I doubt that I would have got 3 appointments 10 minutes apart on the same day. Also, the family member died last year, and I made countless trips, definitely in excess of 10, to the dump over the space of a week when clearing out her house. How would I have handled that if I had to make appointments, you know? It's not like I could have rented a van because obviously commercial vehicles aren't allowed. And I've also been contacted by someone who has 3 adults and 4 children in their house. They say that they produce a lot of waste and they have the larger 360 litre bin that the council provides. They also do their best to recycle whatever they can. They told me they make roughly 1 trip a fortnight to Hamilton and Blantyre Waste and Recycling Centre. Would they be allowed 26 bookings a year? Has any cognizance been given to the additional administration that this will put on large families? And I'll also come back to Councillor McLachlan's point in the previous item, that once you've loaded your car with waste, it's easier to take it to an official tip than to fly tip. Well, this decision would make that point patently untrue. And I don't know, whenever I've visited the tip, maybe I've just been lucky, but I've never waited longer than 5 to 10 minutes, and I don't feel that a booking system's necessary at all. Thanks.
Thanks very much, Cal. I mean, to be fair, I'm bound to say at our recycling centre at Eastfield, you know, there are quite constantly queues outside when they close the dump for, you know, removal of the waste and all of that. Blocks up the roundabout, causes all sorts of issues there. So there are, you know, it's a bit more complicated than that. Do you want to say anything, Kevin, on the individual points that Councillor Dempsey made there?
Yep, sure. Yeah, thanks for the question. Your point's well made, and just to start maybe in Councillor Brown's point, you know, the biggest complaint that we receive with recycling centres is queuing times, particularly East Kilbride and Rutherglen, regularly, particularly over the summer period, where obviously it's seasonal and people are emptying their garage and tidying out their house. We see significant queues at peak times. And the main aim of the system, although there's multiple benefits, is actually smoothing that demand over the week to ensure that there's no queues and that ourselves and BIFA can manage site downtime better than we're doing at the moment. Because as soon as we close the recycling centre to move skips, to move waste, you've already got a queue backing up. So the booking system allows us to do that. And as you've seen from the evidence in Carluke, it removes queues. You know, and the feedback we've got from residents there that echoed some of your comments, Councillor Dempsey, sceptical, and I appreciate what we're asking members to do is another step in a process, if you like. However, the online form is really simple. It takes a minute, 2 minutes to do, or it's a phone call if you can't use technology, and you can make the booking really easily. And if you're managing, you know, as you suggested, over a week, multiple drops, you could make, you know, 1 phone call and book the slots that you want to make that week. And in terms of, you know, a large family that are disposing waste regularly, there'd be no issue with them using a recycling centre, you know, every month. If I've taken your point correctly, they'll be use it as often as they want, and hopefully the more they use it, you know, the simpler the form or the call is to arrange that booking.
Thanks very much. Councillor Watson, David.
Thanks, Chair. I'm going to confine my comments to the East Kilbride Recycling Centre because it's the one I know, and I dare say it's maybe not much different from the other centres throughout South Lanarkshire. The East Kilbride Waste Centre, in my opinion, located in the wrong place and has been for a while now. It's been there for over 20 years. It's in the middle of an industrial estate, and it doesn't really fit the needs of the town. I've raised this on numerous occasions and been told, well, residents for Calderwood St Leonards can go to the Blantyre tip or whatever. And to me, that's not really a satisfactory answer. I have been told on a number of occasions as well that a review was getting carried out and all the tips in South Lanarkshire, and I've never seen that. So we are where we are today. As I say, the East Kilbride tip is in a business area, and it does have an impact on the businesses in the area when the queues are tailed back right onto the Queensway, and that happens quite often at busy times at the weekend and bank holidays, and this might be a way of alleviating some of that, and I would acknowledge that, and I would acknowledge that I know people that live in other local authority areas and work with booking systems, and they seem to think it works okay for them. But my worry about this is the lack of consultation as well. We just seem to be dropping this again on people. It's quite a tight time scale. Why can't we trial it in the other areas? I know it's been trialled elsewhere, but each site must be unique in the problems and the associated problems for them. So I would be asking, why can't we have a limited booking for busy periods, i.e. weekend, bank holidays, and any times that we can pick up that are busy, and allow some flexibility for residents to get access to them if they need to go on an ad hoc basis. I mentioned consultation. There doesn't seem to have been any, and maybe I can be corrected in that one, but I've never noticed it. And we seem to be leaving ourselves a limited time to communicate any change that people can expect. I think Kevin mentioned about maybe people phoning in. I would hope it's not phoning in to book on the council's line for everything else, because all I get is complaints about that and folk can't get through to departments. So would there be a dedicated phone line for MD wanting to book a slot to get access? And I'm going to ask the question that David McLaughlin might not like, but what monitoring will be put in place to monitor fly tipping and any change in pattern in that? Because the reality is there is fly tipping going on out there. I can take up to a site not long ago. I had to contact Land Services where there was 10 bin bags.
I don't want to hurry you on, Julie, but we are getting a bit tight on time.
No, but I'm just saying there was 10 bin bags, less than half a mile from the civic amenity site. Now, somebody must have taken that in a car to get there and dump it. And I say it was less than half a mile. I was down at the East Kilbride civic amenity site the other week, last week, sorry, and right outside it, there's dumping goes on and continually goes on. So people are taking it. If they're not getting access to the civic amenity site, they're going somewhere else, and that's usually in industrial areas or in our rural areas or a wee quiet spot within our constituents. Thanks, Chair.
Kevin, can you want to come back on the consultation point and the alternative
Thanks,
issues?
Chair.
Well?
Just a few things to unpack there. The consultation point, you know, what we're proposing now is based on our experience in Curluke. So timescales in terms of rolling out, implementing, communicating with the local residents, all matches with what we did in Curluke. So we're comfortable, you know, if this is approved today, that we've got enough time by that August deadline, you know, to get the communication out there and make all residents aware that there's a new system in place. So we're kind of comfortable with that. You also suggested, Councillor McLaughlin, that using a booking system, if I'm right, kind of in peak periods, you know, which is probably not something that we would be looking to do, is it's introducing a much more complex system than we would have at the moment and would require regular management. So for us, the real benefits are actually managing that whole week and making sure we've got capacity and demand smoothed over the week. And actually some of our recycling centres are busy, like your local recycler are busy actually constantly. You You'll see from Carluke as well that 99% of bookings are actually done through the simple online form. Only 1% are through via telephone call, and that is the customer contact centre. And we're confident when this is up and running that those statistics will match elsewhere. And maybe a final point on fly tipping. We report on fly tipping to the Climate Change Committee through the litter strategy. So as you know, members will know we do a lot of work in that area, both reactive and proactive. It's within the litter strategy action plan. We're doing lots of work with services across the council. We're due to report later in the year. We had a baseline report last year, so I mean, I'm saying the first 2 months of this year we're not seeing an uptick in fly tipping, and we'll be reporting the actual figures for this year later in the year to the Climate Change Committee, so everybody will be able to see what's happened over the last 6 months.
Thanks, Kevin. Councillor Andrea Cowan. Andrea.
Thanks, Chair. Just a couple of things. I'm glad that Councillor Watson raised the telephone issue. I'm always concerned. I've said this several times in the past at other meetings. I'm always concerned when I see people being directed to an online booking forum. And I've said this before as well. I've got parents in their 80s who wouldn't know where to start. So, you know, they're able and fit to get about and would maybe even go to the dump, but they certainly wouldn't be able to book online. So I hope the phones are manned well, and, you know, it's not hanging on listening to recordings. The other thing I wanted to say was that I've had anecdotal evidence from a friend who said that in her area they've introduced this and a different authority, and sometimes you have to wait 3 or 4 weeks to get an appointment at the weekend. And obviously for people who are working, you know, that could cause an issue. I don't know how far in advance do you need to know that you're going to need an appointment, and I wonder if there's any evidence from Carluke as to the waiting time from people asking for an appointment. Also, do people get their first requested appointment? You know, if you ask for, you know, Saturday morning at 10 o'clock, you know, is that a guarantee, or do you know, somebody come back to you, you know, that sort of thing. So just a wee bit around that as well, so that people can plan ahead. And I did wonder if, you know, if there would be a review perhaps in 12 months to see how this is working. I appreciate it will take some time to bed in. And, you know, just maybe to have that review on a centre by centre basis, because one size doesn't fit all, and what might work for Eastfield, which is a very busy recycling centre, that same, you know, that booking service may not need to apply to another smaller centre. So just a few points, if Kevin could come back on those. Thanks.
I think it's worth pointing out, Andrea, that the recycling centres are not just open in the daytime and at the weekends, they're also open in the evenings up to certain times as well. So it's not entirely as black and white as perhaps is suggested there. Kevin, any further comments on the monitoring and review and things like that?
Happy to bring an update in a year's time, you know, with analysis of the uptake of the booking system over the first year, and look at each individual recycling centre on its own. More than happy to do that. In terms of the practicalities of how the system works, when you go into the online form or you speak to an operator, you look at this, you'll view the slots available at that point. So, you know, you may want to be booking that Friday afternoon, and you're picking the times that are available then on the system. So from that point of view, it's relatively straightforward. As I said, the online form, we've tried to keep it as simple as possible, recognising that, you know, lots of people don't have particular IT skills. And again, very simple, and if they can't use that, then it's a phone call to the customer contact centre.
Okay,
I appreciate there's an element of counterintuitiveness about some of this, but I think it's quite important, and the arguments are worth having. Councillor Gladys Miller.
Thanks, Chair. I think I've been very lucky, because any time I'm at East Kilbride, I tend to go during the week, or I tend to go in the evening. But I do agree, I wouldn't go near it at the weekend because it's always mobbed. And Councillor Watson's obviously reading my mind, or we just think alike because we're East Kilbride. But I was thinking, would it be possible to put the booking system in for weekends and during the week just free for all? The other thing, both Andrea's mentioned it and David's mentioned it about the customer contact centre, which is awful. I mean, I know that it was published even before they were thinking of reducing staff in it. The published time was 20 minutes waiting time, which for an authority is ridiculous, and older people are not hanging on. Any call centre, if you speak to any call centre rather than contact centre, call centres will tell you that people start dropping off after a minute. So there'll be a lot of people out there be really frustrated, and particularly the older generation who don't have the facility to go online and wouldn't know what to do if they had it in front of them.
I'm conscious of an element of coming back to some of the same points here. I wonder if we can just take a couple of other interventions and then get a response from the officials after that, if we may. Councillor McLachlan.
Thanks, Chair. First off, I'm not disappointed at all in that David Watson had said. That I'm not suggesting that there isn't any fly tipping. Fly tipping is a scourge, and it happens far too often in too many different places. I see it on a daily basis when I'm out and about. And part of the reason people do fly tip is, and this could be addressed by this new system, the civic amenity site at High Blantyre Industrial Estate, there's a queue of traffic comes out onto the Hill House Road, and it queues back as far as the cemetery at times. Now, people, when they join that queue, not realising that the queue goes round the roundabout into the civic amenity site, and the amount of near misses I've seen there when people get totally frustrated when they realise they're waiting in a queue for the dump, and in actual fact they just want to go on with their business. So there's a real road safety issue there at that particular location, and I think this would help it. And as far as a trial's concerned, it's been carried out at Carluke, and it works. You know, so I mean, I hear what you're saying, David, but I don't think we need a trial because it works at Carluke, and not only does it work at Carluke, it works at East Dumbartonshire Council. It's an SNP-led council for any other members that might be interested to know that. It works there. So I really just don't see what the problem is. This is going to solve a problem. And some of the fly tipping that takes place, I assume, can't say for certain because I haven't seen it. If I seen it, I would just phone the police straight away. But when people join, they see the big massive queue and they might think to themselves, and they may think to themselves, and I don't condone it if they do, look at the length of the queue, I might as well just go and dump it somewhere in the back road. So if we don't have these big massive queues and people can book it, I think that will make an improvement. And I don't know if this was answered earlier, Kevin, when Cal Dempsey had made the point. I don't think there'd be a limit in how many times you could attend. You know, you could book it as often as you like. You know, you could come there a half dozen times a day if you felt like it. There wouldn't be a limit as such for people with a small car. And I see you're nodding, so I'm taking that as agreement that there'll be no limit. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thanks very much. And Councillor Falconer, Alan.
Thanks, Chair. Just agreeing with Davy's point about the Hill House one at Blantyre Industrial Estate. I was in the day and the place was empty. But one of the times we get the queue, and it's back to what Kevin said earlier, is see when they're moving the skips. When they're moving the skips, the whole thing shuts down. So you wouldn't be able to time in the day when that skip would need to be moved unless you knew how much rubbish was in. Can we address that? Or?
Kevin, do you want to come back to the general points?
Sure, there's a few points. So the answer to that is they have the waste data. So they actually have the data, the times, their historic data, so they can plan it. So they're able to book it in advance. So it's not just about knowing, reacting to what's happening. They've got good data on when people are using the site, what they're bringing in the tonnages, so they can plan it in advance. So again, one of the main benefits of that is ensuring that half hour or an hour, however long it takes, is already in the system and nobody's showing up at that time. A few other questions around that, in Councillor McLachlan. No, there's no restriction, and just to say we're actively encouraging people to make use of the recycling centre. You know, they're great facilities. You'll see on our website and any of our other comms, we are always actively encouraging people to use the recycling centres, and we're hoping that the booking system goes further than that, because a lot of people, as you're suggesting, and some of the recycling centres regularly experience queuing, and we're hoping that this booking system is going to alleviate that and encourage more to use it. To go back to a couple of other points about, again, can we use it only, introduce the booking system maybe only weekends? And again, the real benefit of having that is having the system across the week, because you can move the demand across the week to whoever can use it in periods of time other than peak times. So that's where the benefit of the system's at its maximum. And again, you know, you'll see in the feedback from Carluke and within the report, section 3.3 in the report, generally the satisfaction is really high, not just about the experience on site, but the experience of using the system itself. So we don't tend to get a lot of negative feedback about the online form or the contact centre. And again, I appreciate we're scaling it up here with this proposal, you know, but if we translate 99% of bookings through the simple online form, then hopefully we're mitigating, you know, some of your concerns around that.
Thanks very much, Kevin. There's pros and cons, obviously, of all these sorts of matters, but I think it's reasonably clear there's a traffic issue in some locations, there's the convenience issue, there's a safety issue to some degree because of the movement of the skips that Alan refers to, and there's a convenience issue as well for people. So across the board, it does seem to me this is one that's worthwhile doing. I didn't hear anybody moving against it, so can I... Sorry, I'm getting people coming back in. Councillor Watson.
It's Councillor Johnson Dempsey.
Councillor Johnson Dempsey. Sorry, it flashed.
No worries, Chair. Given that the previous trial was in a council-run facility in a rural area, and that these are contractor-run facilities in urban areas, I wonder if we could amend the report to make this a trial and include a review at the 1 year point. That's bringing in Kevin's comments earlier.
I think
so a review at the 1 year point, including consultation with service users, the contractors themselves, and any council officers involved, and also hope that you may accept that amendment without a vote before you move the report as amended, if possible.
I think the answer to the question is that we've already accepted there will be a review after a year. Kevin said that earlier on.
Yeah.
There will be ongoing monitoring of the matter, which I think takes up your issue of consultation, how people are responding to it. The Carluke one did have these 99% figures come from service user surveys of various kinds, if I'm not mistaken on that. So I don't think there's a need for an amendment on this one, if I may respectfully suggest.
Sorry if I come back in on that, Chair. I understand Kevin committed to that. My point is just to make it part of the recommendations, so it's an official decision of this committee that we want that consultation at a 1 year point. It wouldn't change any of the actions, it would just make it concrete.
I think we're accepting, are we not, that there'll be a review after a year. I think that's the phraseology we're using. I'm happy to put that into the report in what appropriate manner. Does that
brilliant, thank you for accepting
you're happy with that? Yes, that's good.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. Councillor Watson.
Thanks.
Thanks, Chair. It's probably a similar point, but a review's a review. It doesn't mean anything. It just says we've looked at it and this is what's happening. I would want to go a wee step further and say that this should be a trial period for 6 months and then a further report should come back to committee. And I'm happy to move that. Whether I can get a seconder, not sure, Chair.
I'm not, I think, prepared to accept that. I don't know if there's a seconder to Councillor Watson's motion. Councillor Cowan.
Hi, thanks, Chair. I would be happy to second that. I think that I think there should be a review and it should be a trial basis so that if needed, the arrangements can be altered in 12 months' time on a centre-by-centre basis. I think that's important.
All right, I think we've got a clear vote then again on the matter between approval of the report, subject to the idea of there being a review after 12 months, and the amendment in the terms stated by Councillor Watson. 6 months was what he said. 6 months was what he moved. Can we clarify that? What is the amendment? Is it 6 months or is it 12 months?
My suggestion was 6 months, but if a committee's minded, I'm happy to accept the 12 months, but I preferred the 6. But if Andrina's wanting to go for the 12, that's fine. Thanks.
Okay, 12 months then I think is the amendment.
Can I just clarify that Councillor Cowan and Councillor Watson are both in agreement with the 12-month review for all 6 centres?
Andrea?
Who's lost?
She's vanished. Again. Andrea?
Hi, yeah, thank you. I'm sorry, that's the 3rd or 4th time that Conferro has shut down on me. I was just looking to say to Councillor Watson, I sorry, I know you'd said 6 months. I felt 12 months. I think it needs some time to bed in. And I thought 12 months was more appropriate. I don't know what was said when I was away, but that's
Right.
what I was.
I think Councillor Watson accepted your 12 months. So the amendment is the 12-month version, if I can put it that way. Can we take the vote?
Okay.
Maybe call it a point of order. I don't know. You determine whether it is or not. But does the contractor, the operator, allow us to trial it? Because if a contractor is going to be dealing with it, is a trial allowable? And let's be honest, at the end of the day, it's a bit of semantics at the end of the day, because if there's a review being held, it doesn't matter if you're calling it an absolute concrete decision or a temporary decision. If it's going to be reviewed, it's going to be reviewed. And it's not working, we'll close it down. If it's good, we'll keep it. But getting back to the point, does the contract with the operators allow us to trial it? That's the question.
I think there's provision for that, Kevin, isn't the contract, isn't there?
Thanks, Chair. There's provision for the introduction of a booking system. So I'm going to make an assumption here, and I don't think there'll be an issue with a trial, but the language in the contract is around the introduction of the booking system if we choose to do so.
Yeah. I think we should take the vote on this if the opposition are continuing with the motion from Councillor Watson, Councillor Cowan.
So, Chair, if I could just confirm, we have a proposer and seconder for the recommendations in the report, with the addition that a review is brought back to committee after a year. Is that proposed by yourself and Councillor Devlin? And so that is the motion. So we're looking at the recommendations in the report with the addition that a review is brought back in 12 months to committee. The amendment, as proposed by Councillor Watson and seconded by Councillor Cowan, is that this is trialled at the 6 centres for 12 months and then a report be brought back to committee for a decision to be made at that point. So with that, we'll just start the vote.
Same vote, should it? Should be the same vote.
As long as everybody's understanding.
Yeah, quite.
I can see that all members have now voted, so if the chair is okay, I'll stop the vote. Okay, the vote shows that we have 12 members voted in favour of the motion, 11 members in favour of the amendment. The motion is therefore declared carried. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, colleagues. Thanks for your patience on these ones as well. I think with any luck we can move through the rest of the agenda slightly more quickly. Moving into item 11, which is the operational and financial implications, if I can get this out in one mouthful, of managing waste upholstered domestic seating, WUDs, containing persistent organic pollutants, POPs, pages 161 to 166. Could I invite Kirsty Maguire to speak to the report?
Okay. Thank you, Chair, and good afternoon, everyone. So the report sets out the operational and financial implications of managing waste upholstered domestic seating, which, as the Chair has said, we refer to as WUDs, containing persistent organic pollutants, which we refer to as POPs. The purpose of the report is threefold. One, to provide an update on the operational changes which the Council needs to make in order to comply with the persistent organic pollutant regulations from 2007. Two, to provide an estimate of the additional costs associated with these changes. And three, to seek approval to increase the waste services, employee establishment and the grounds waste vehicle establishment. Section 3 of the report sets out the background to the POP regulations. It explains why POPs are chemicals of concern and highlights the specific legal requirements associated with managing waste containing these chemicals. Section 3.4 makes reference to waste upholstered domestic seating and lists common WUDs that you find in domestic settings. So items such as sofas, armchairs, kitchen and dining chairs are all examples of what we would call WUDs. And these are subject to additional controls once they become waste. Section 4 of the report describes the current arrangements for collecting and transporting WUDs. and recognises that the existing collection methods for bulky waste does not separate woods from other waste streams. It also acknowledges that the service utilises compaction refuse vehicles when collecting bulky waste from domestic premises. Section 5 of the report sets out the requirements for a separate woods collection service in order that we would comply with the relevant legislation and the SEPA guidance. The estimated cost of compliance is 544 million per annum. This figure is broken down as follows. So cost for additional vehicles at 0.095 million. That's referenced in section 5.3 and 5.5. The cost of additional employees, in which is 0.218 million per annum. That's set out in sections 5.4 and 7.1 of the report. And the additional disposal costs, which are estimated to be in the region of 0.231 million per annum. So just to circle back to the recommendations, I would ask that the committee approves the following: that the required operational changes are noted, that the additional financial implications associated with compliance are noted, that the waste service establishment is increased by 6 full-time equivalent on a permanent basis, as set out in sections 5.4 and 7.1 of the report, and that this is approved, and that the increase in vehicle establishment for wasting grounds, which is detailed in sections 5.3 and 5.5 of the report, is also approved. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Kirsty. I dare say this is a cost that the department could do without, but nevertheless, compliance issues come into it. I don't see any questions. Can I therefore move the report?
Agreed.
That's agreed. Moving on to item 12. That's the UK Levelling Up Fund update and next steps, pages 167 to 170. Back to Alison Brown.
Thank you. This is very much a technical paper which provides an update on South Lanarkshire's Levelling Up Fund awards and seeks approval to enter into legal agreements. The Council has been successful in securing 2 LUF awards for Shawfield remediation and development and the Clydesdale Way project as part of the Three Rivers Active Travel Tourism. The details of the awards are set out in paragraph 3.2. Validation checks for both projects have been completed and there's now a requirement for the Council to enter into formal legal agreements with partners, namely Clyde Gateway Urban Regeneration Company and Dumfries and Galloway Council. Lastly, given the upcoming general election, there may be implications regarding the timing of final approvals. Therefore, I'd ask committee to approve that we enter into legal agreements with partners for Shawfield and for the Clydesdale Way project, and note the implications for the general election. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Questions, Alan Falconer?
Aye, thanks, Chair. Under the previous Labour administration, I visited this site when Chris Thompson was the chair. This is where the police station's across from it, back in Shawfield. Can I ask how much money has actually been spent in that, including this 16 million?
Alison?
So the Shawfield area that you're referring to has got significant carcinogenic chromium contamination, which impacts the communities of Rutherglen and Shawfield, but actually also enters the watercourse of the River Clyde. So it actually impacts quite a large area of the conurbation. There has been significant money spent in this area, and I don't have the total figure to hand, but I can certainly get you that. The project in front of us and as part of the LUF award actually deals with the source of the chromium contamination, which was the White's chemical factory. So that's what the LUF award is going to be dealing with, and it is significant monies, but I would actually emphasise that that isn't the job completed at Shawfield, and there is still future work to be undertaken. But I'll certainly come back to you, Councillor, with a total investment by Clyde Gateway as one of our partners.
Okay, thank you. I mean, this is, in many ways, is a good news development issue, because this has been a major contaminant of the area for many, many years past. And I think we can see the beginnings of the end in sight here, albeit there's still quite a bit of money to spend to get there. And the LUF funding, I think, has been very, very useful towards doing that. So can we approve the report?
I'll second it.
Thank you very much indeed. And moving on to the items for noting, They are, in substance, I think we'll take with them separate. Item 13, Scottish Government Play Investment Programme, pages 171 to 188. Colin Reid to report on this one.
Thanks, Chair. Purpose of this report is to provide an update on the progress to date in the Scottish Government's Play Area Investment Programme. Section 3, the Scottish Government launched a £60 million fund to renew play parks in Scotland in order that children have access to high quality outdoor play in their own communities. £10 million of funding was distributed across councils in 2021-2022 and 2022-2023, with the council's share totalling £0.594 million. The Scottish Government has confirmed the full allocation, which will see South Lanarkshire Council receiving a total of £3.58 million up to 2025-2026. The original intention of the Government is to renew and transform all play areas in Scotland. However, it was clear from the proposed funding package that this would not be achievable. Due to the potential shortfall in funding, the Scottish Government agreed that councils could identify their own investment priorities. Section 3.3. The Council completed an initial exercise to identify potential costs to bring all 233 play areas up to an appropriate standard rather than the full renewal. This identified a funding shortfall of approximately £620,000 to bring all play areas up to an appropriate standard. Section 3.4. Prior to the assessment process starting, the Council also carried out a high-level survey in play in general, with 6,395 responses received. The consultation response has been utilised as the Council begins implementation of the programme, with the comments received for each site considered in more detail and further consultation undertaken with local children, families and ward members as proposals that are developed. Section 4.2. As highlighted in Section 3.3, initial inspection of all play areas has shown a funding shortfall of £620,000 to bring all sites up to an appropriate standard. A simple allocation of the funding available across all current play areas, regardless of any other considerations, will see minimal impact in play areas. For some, funding would only go some way to addressing accessibility issues, environmental conditions, or applying modern safety standards to historic locations, i.e. new fencing for play areas near roads. Section 4.3. In December 2022, the Committee approved a more strategic place-based approach to allocating specific assessment that would see targeted investment in priority play areas. Section 4.4. Given the multi-year profile of the funding, the following programme is agreed with focus on specific locations each year, as per the following table.
Colin, I don't think we need to run through the detailed individual projects, if I may say so. Thank you.
4.5. Lark was the first area to receive investment in the consultation undertaken with elected members and local primary school, complementing the findings of a previous local authority-wide public survey, which has led to targeting 6 sites for investment. Following a procurement exercise, the contract was awarded in March 2024, with the works commencing the site on 27th of May 2024. Starting with Brown Street, it is anticipated the contract duration will be approximately 8 weeks for all 6 sites. The same process has been followed for the Cambuslang and Rutherglen area, with consultation undertaken with elected members and local primary schools, complementing the findings of the previously mentioned local authority-wide public survey, which has identified the following 6 sites for investment. This contract has been awarded and we anticipate work will commence in the coming weeks. This service has begun preparatory work in the Hamilton, Blantyre, Uniston and Borle area, which are next to receive detailed assessments. Thereafter, consultation will commence with elected members and primary schools to identify the play areas to be targeted for investment. Section 6 details the breakdown of the £3.58 million. I'll bring you back to Section 2. The Committee is asked to approve that the progress made to date in the 5-year play investment programme be noted.
Thanks very much. Can I just ask one brief question? I've seen a lot of comment on Facebook over what about disabled children and all that. This report has actually shot through with things about that. Can you make a brief comment about that, Colin, the extent to which we've dealt with, if you like, inclusive playground equipment?
It's perhaps the understanding of, the inclusivity element. Inclusivity is about the whole play experience. We do get inquiries about, why have we not installed like disabled swings, etc. Technically, you can't install a disabled swing if it's not a manned play area, and we don't have manned play areas. So it's more about the inclusive element, allowing children of different ages, different abilities to be playing with each other in an environment that's safe and suitable for all.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions? In which case, can I move that the report be noted?
Great.
Okay. Item 13 is bigger public park update. Alison?
Thank you.
14, sorry. 14, yeah.
This report provides an update to secure arrangements for the long-term financial sustainability of Biggar Public Park. The park is owned by the Council, and until March 2024, the Council had a service contract for the day-to-day management of activities, including caravan pitches, camping pitches, and other activities as set out in paragraph 3.3. The facilities are, however, in poor condition, with essential works required to the electrical supply and the shower block. The total capital investment is estimated at over £500,000, sorry. In order to consider the future of the park, the Council has sought specialist advice to undertake market appraisals and prepare design options for the park. From the information received by the consultants, a public consultation exercise was undertaken in January and February this year of various options. The strong preference from the community was to retain and develop the caravan park as a leisure facility within the existing space. This preferred option concurred with the consultants' view, who have advised that the Council should be seeking a third-party interest for the caravan park or the wider site, and this activity is underway. It is intended that a new caravan park will be operational for Easter 2025, and therefore I'd ask committee to note the contents of the report.
Thanks very much, Alison. Ian McCallan. Ian.
I want to put on record my thanks for Alison and her team for all the hard work around Biggar Park. The park is crucial to the business and community well-being, and I'm glad it's acknowledged by the Council with the effort and the commitment made to date. So thank you.
Thanks very much, Ian. I do know the amount of work that's gone into this has been very considerable. Can we note the report?
I agree.
Thank you very much. And the final item, Community Enterprise Resources notification of contracts awarded 1st October 2023 to 31st March 2024. Don't need to say very much on that, David, do you?
Thank you very much, Chair. So it's just to say that this is a standard report. It covers, as the Chair has said, the period from the 1st of October 2023 to the 31st of March 2024, the contents of which are in Appendix 1. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can we note the report if there are no questions on that? Thank you very much, colleagues. It's been a long meeting today with some controversial issues, but thank you very much for your attendance.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Great. Thanks for your support.